Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good following morning. Today is Thursday, November 5th. Today I actually know the date, and it is AMA number 33. Patrick Ewing, that's for you, Benji. AMA number 33. Hello, Ola Conyor. Hello, Benji. They called the race Team Hamantashen has won. No. When they call it, it will be Team Latka, but thank you. Hello, Ryan Kaplan. Nice to talk to you. So the election. We will get to the election, but first we have to get to a few other things, although it's really kind of hard to talk about anything else when you just have, when we have the election on our minds. Today, my guest is Lisa Lis, who is a friend. She's living in Detroit area, very involved Jewishly, very involved politically. We'll talk a little bit about what she's been up to with the election we'll get to, but also about her, the Detroit Jewish community, which is interesting. And she has kids living in Israel, and she's just a fascinating person who has a really, really cool newsletter that she sends out on Fridays, or she was sending out kind of off and on a little bit, but a wonderful, wonderful Shabbat Shalom newsletter that she sends out, which is the greatest. My all-time favorite newsletter is from Lisa. So we'll talk to her about a lot of things, but she's very involved in democratic politics. So she's a good person. I thought with Michigan always being such an important state, always the last few election cycles, so that she's a good person to talk to and didn't disappoint with the timing. So we'll talk about that. Hello, Marcel Zielinski. Marcel, I'm particularly envious of you that you're in Montreal and not in the United States, which is just a bit of a mess. So good to see you, of course, Marcel. As always, good to see you. Stop the count. So before we get to the election, it's funny, I just try not to make everything only about the election. Corona in Poland, we'll talk a little bit about Corona in Poland, which is continuing to get worse and worse and worse. We had today 27,000 new cases. So I think you'll remember when we hit 10,000 every week. So for the last month or so at the AMA on Thursdays, it's been a new record. So we're at 27,000. Last Thursday was 20,000, which was also a record. So starting on Saturday, there's more lockdown measures, which means schools are closed except for preschool. So our preschool will stay open. Everything else in the JCC is closed. Malls are closed. All shops are closed except for food stores, food shops like supermarkets and smaller food shops, and building shops, building stores like Home Depot type stores. I guess that's so while you're stuck at home, you can build stuff. Guess it makes sense. I'm not sure exactly why those. I mean, I get the food aspect I get. I'm not 100% sure why. What is Benji asking? What's with the shin on my shirt? The shin on my shirt is for Shudrik. No, in honor of Lisa and in honor of the way that Michigan did the right thing, I am wearing a blue Michigan, University of Michigan shirt, actually in Hebrew, that a friend of mine gave me as a gift. So there you go. I thought I like to dress thematically if connected to my guest. So today, definitely Michigan. So Corona in Poland, very, very bad, closing everything, encouraging people not to go out. Theaters, cinemas, museums, everything closed. Only pharmacies, food stores, animal stores for pet food, which is important, and hotels only open for guests on business trips. I'm not sure of the logic there. And all school students besides preschool are learning remotely. Kids are still not allowed out on their own up to the age of 16 between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. That's actually not a bad rule all the time. Kids should need accompaniment to be outside. They generally cause trouble. No, just kidding. So yeah, weddings, everything. Seniors supposed to stay inside. Weddings canceled, or weddings not allowed to be held. So they're really, really trying to clamp down on Corona here in Poland. So we're in lockdown. The UK is in lockdown. Israel in lockdown. So that is the situation. A very, very difficult situation here in Poland that continues with that. In terms of what I've been watching, well, let's see. I've been up for about 72 hours watching election results. So I apologize in advance if I make less, I don't want to say no sense, or I will say less sense than usual. But besides that, I watched almost finished, so no spoilers, please. The Queen's Gambit, which I enjoy very much. So I used to play a lot of chess. I played when I was a really little kid, and then I kind of just stopped it. I don't know, freaked out a little bit about the chess. So stopped playing chess. I mean, occasionally I'll play a game of chess, but I don't play as seriously as I did when I was little. So it's watching a show about child prodigy who becomes a champion is always, I can watch anything about chess. So I'm enjoying The Queen's Gambit. Check it out. I don't think I've really watched anything else besides that. The situation in Poland politically continues to be tense. There are still protests going on. Last Friday was a massive, massive protest in Warsaw. Some of you may have seen photos. It was, it was in the news all over the world. The sort of massive, just huge protests. Women protests in Warsaw. Of course, the right wing, far right people attacked them. It was a mess. But that continues to some degree. Their protests have calmed down a little bit, but the situation still continues to be tense, and there's not really a resolution. I think that it's a different type of protest this time. This is in the past, things have really, I think, calmed down. I think this has become something that's about something larger than only the abortion being made more restrictive. Than this has become about something bigger than that. And I think really a referendum on the government and dissatisfaction with the government. And the statistics really show that the percentage of supporters in the government went down huge drop very quickly. So yeah. Oh, hi Sita, my dad's watching. Hi Dad, how are you? Good to see you, Dad. My mom is not watching, but a little shout out for my mom, who's not doing so well. So I actually, although there's a difficult situation with quarantine and all of this, I might actually have to go to New York just because my mom's not doing great, and I probably need to do that. I'm not sure exactly the logistics of flying to the States these days, and they changed the rule with the quarantine. I think you have to have a negative test result and then go into quarantine for a few days, which is better than it was, which was 2 weeks. So it looks like in the near future, I'll be traveling to the US, assuming it's not in complete chaos. So the election, we're going to get into it with Lisa, but I just sort of give you where we are in terms of things that they're still waiting to call. Some places, I guess Nevada is the thing sort of being held out, although the votes that are coming in, the votes left to count are coming from Democratic areas, usually so from Clark County, which skews Democratic. So also the early voters also skew Democratic. So you have a Democrat from within, people that normally vote Democratic, the early voters within, drawing from a pool of a Democratic voting county. So I don't think that, I think that the election is sort of is I posted yesterday on Facebook, I don't know, 24 hours ago. To me, I don't see a way that Trump can win. His last tweet, I'm not really on Twitter. I guess officially I'm on Twitter, but I don't pay any attention to it or tweet or anything. But his last tweet was "Stop the count," which is fascinating because if you stop the count right now, Joe Biden is the president. So I don't know. He's saying essentially, stop the count in places that I'm not winning, which just shows the complete random ravings of a madman. Or it's not about the ravings, it's about that people just don't see it for what it is, which is the incredible shock to me. Anna in Brazil is asking, how's Pani Zosha? Yeah, Pani Zosha wasn't feeling well. Pani Zosha, our beloved Pani Zosha, had a birthday yesterday. And we went and stopped by because she's can't get out of bed. She has a problem with her hip. She's in a lot of pain. So Kasha and I went over and brought her flowers and wished her a happy birthday. And she's doing okay. So thank you for that. So yeah, it's been a pretty intense time watching the election. I think there were three possibilities with the election, as I see it. One was that Trump would win. Two is that would win, would sort of somehow eke it out. The other was that Biden would win in such a convincing manner that there would be no way for Trump to protest or say anything, which is probably naive, considering he would just get upset and protest and do that anyway, regardless of the outcome. If he lost by 400 electoral votes, he probably would just say it was all rigged and all fake and fake news and the rest of it. And then, so that was the second one, the Biden in a huge victory. And then the third option is the option that we have, that it's very close. Biden looks like he's going to win, and Trump is just went on, because the votes, so much early voting this year and write-in voting because of Corona, that most of the people who took Corona seriously, in other words, people that believe in science, AKA Democrats, voted early. Voted early and voted in, and those votes in most situations were counted after the votes that came on election day. So everybody's been saying for months and months and months the way this would break, that it would look early that Trump was winning, and then the fear for all of us that Trump was going to go on TV and announce and just declare himself the winner. So lo and behold, Trump is nothing in certain ways, if not predictable. Trump went on TV at 2:30 Tuesday night and declared himself the victor. Now, I think luckily, and these days you can't take anything like that for granted, luckily people didn't take it seriously. His supporters take everything he does seriously, shockingly to me. But the even mainstream Republican Party, if there is such a thing anymore, and to some degree, I guess a little bit left there is, didn't necessarily go along with him. You didn't have someone like Mitch McConnell getting up there and saying, yes, we won. So Trump is just, it's like the ravings of your crazy uncle who gets up there and as Dr. Evil said in Austin Power, accuses chestnuts of being lazy. This is the level of Trump, which is fine. People are always saying ridiculous things. The fact that, 70 million Americans feel that he should be the leader of the country is still, and maybe until my dying day, the most shocking thing that I've ever witnessed, and I'm unable to get my head around it. And I read nonstop stuff about this and getting into the psyche, and I talk from an anthropological point of view and the psychological point of view and emasculation of American male, and them acting out all of this stuff I read and absorb it. And at the end of the day, I cannot understand how you have somebody who's just a complete liar and people would still trust him. So to me, if you hadn't lost faith and trust by 2:30 in the morning on election day, the fact that he just gets up there and says that he won, when you understand, and even Fox News, nobody is saying that at all, then shouldn't you say, wait a minute, there's a problem. This person that I'm supporting is a liar. And maybe these 1,000 times in the past, everybody's been saying that he's lying. Maybe he actually was lying. So the fact that there's no connection with that, the fact that people don't apply the same logic that they apply in the rest of their lives, they don't hold this person accountable, is something completely shocking. But as we are right now, in 19 minutes, Georgia is having a press conference. I feel that Trump is going to get caught in Georgia. I think Biden's going to win Georgia by a few thousand. I think he will almost get North Carolina, but he won't get it, just because these votes that are being counted now in all of these states, and not because of any cheating and not because of any hocus pocus or anything. This is what everybody's been saying all along. These are going to break Democratic, because Democrats participated overwhelmingly more than Republicans in early voting. So this is exactly what was predicted. Go back and look at it wherever you want. Things are behaving, going along the way that everybody thought they would, not because of any cheating and giant cabal or QAnon or any of these other things that are going on in the insane mind of Donald Trump. So we have what we have. I think that he's gonna lose all of those. Pennsylvania is gonna be really, really close. We'll see. North Carolina, Trump, I think, will get, but I think he's gonna lose Georgia. Nevada, I think, is gone, and there you go, and that's the election. So, and Anna Panek is saying a good fight on Amazon Prime. I will check it out. And Benzi about Georgia. I will check out A Good Fight. Although I feel like there's a lot of fighting going on. I'm not sure if I need any more of a good fight. So, no further ado. I will now bring on my guest, Lisa Lis. Lisa is from Detroit. She worked before as a preschool teacher, but she is an incredibly involved Jewish leader. She was the president of Women's Philanthropy of Jewish Federation, of the Jewish Women's Foundation, the board of directors of the Jewish Fund. She's now on the board of the Jewish Federation, of the Detroit Zoo, of Tamarack Camps. She's a board member of the Michigan Jewish Democratic Caucus. She is the author of the Jewish world's greatest weekly newsletter, which is not being sent these days, but we'll see. It seems to make an appearance when it needs to. And somebody who's visited us here and is just honored to call her a friend. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Jonathan. Nice to see you.
Excellent to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been crazy the last couple of days. I don't know if you know, we had an election.
I heard there was something about that. I heard that. I just thought it was the TV show election, but then actually I found out that there's an actual election going on.
Yeah. It's been a real roller coaster.
How much sleep have you gotten in the last 3 days?
I don't allow the craziness to interfere with my sleep. That's sacred to me. So I've been sleeping just fine. Thanks for asking. But I do know many people who are not sleeping in their clothes, glued to the TV set, watching the elections come in.
The 6-hour time difference for me doesn't help because so it's, when things start to get interesting in the evening is when it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So I went to sleep at about 6 Tuesday night, and last night not as bad, but yeah, it's
Are you able to vote absentee or no?
Yeah, I did.
You do? Okay.
New York.
Is that a Michigan? Is that a U of M Michigan shirt on you?
How you go?
Michigan. I see that. I'm actually a Spartan, but I do appreciate Wolverines. I do love them.
You appreciate the effort. I don't have a Michigan State in Hebrew. I'd be wearing it.
Okay, you're good. You're good.
So of course we're going to talk about the politics and the election and all that. But I feel like once we do that, then we're just going to drown in that. So I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about just a little bit of pre-politics. Talk a little bit because I find just your involvement in the newsletter and everything really, really fascinating, and just how deeply connected you are to the Michigan or Detroit area JFMD Jewish community. But tell me, you met your husband Hanan, who is a very, very lovely guy. You met in Israel. You went after college or during college to Israel. You were on a kibbutz and you met your husband.
Correct. Yes.
What did your parents think about that?
Not too happy. I was on this program. It was 10 weeks. 2 weeks were on the kibbutz. I met Hanan on the kibbutz. After the 10 weeks, I called them and I said, I'm not coming home. I'm staying on the kibbutz. And I didn't say I met anybody. I said I fell in love with the kibbutz. It's such a great movement. I just love it. And they were on the next plane, within a week, to come visit. And my mom had never been to Israel. Neither of them had ever been to Israel. So at least I got them hooked on Israel after that first visit. It was 1980. We've been married for, 38 years, 4 kids, 3 grandkids. It obviously worked out fine. I was 19. I was young. I don't know, how that decision, it changed my life, but it obviously was the right decision for me.
And you grew up in Detroit?
Born and raised in the city of Detroit. Went through in 1967, we had riots here in the city of Detroit. So there was a white flight. A lot of people left the city, including my family. And then we moved out to the suburbs. So half my growing up was in the city and half was in the suburbs.
I found crazy that when I've only been to Detroit once. I was in Ann Arbor, and then I came to Federation to do a couple things at Federation, and then did a little event in Bloomfield Hills. And it was a very short. I had to get back to New York or somewhere, wherever I was going next. And I actually, and this is embarrassing, that I came to the Detroit Federation, to JFMD, and I didn't actually go into the city of Detroit.
Right. The city is magnificent. It's been through a huge transformation. Like I said, it was huge in we are the auto industry. So it was huge in the 50s and the 60s, but then the 70s, it started to decline, and the 80s and the 90s. And you really didn't want to go to the city for many years. But then obviously there's been a rebirth, and there's been young people and Jewish people. There's been a synagogue down in the city continuously, but rarely used. And now it's got a vibrant community, and it's just a magnificent city right on the river. Our state, I'm a huge supporter of our city of Detroit, our state of Michigan, our Jewish community here. It's just, I don't know if you know, but people say our Detroit Jewish community is unique. It is so strong and tight knit, and anybody that comes to our city and our community is so impressed with what we do with our community and how much we raise for the small amount of people. We are only about 60 to 70,000 Jews here in the city, and we keep declining. You know, it was bigger, it was higher at certain points, but we're declining. But what we do with our community and the connections we make and the deep roots that we all have, it's not like people are raised here, then they move to Chicago, New York, LA, and then oftentimes they come back to the city, back to Detroit area to raise their own kids, because they really had a wonderful, experience themselves. It's a great place.
You're a great advocate for it. So as I mentioned, I was only there once and wasn't even actually in the city, but my connection with the community is, I think, much stronger because of all the federations and communities that have visited the JCC. We have so many visitors, or pre-corona, we had so many visitors coming through, a couple hundred groups a year. No community, counting, if you count federation and different programs, anything, no community has visited us more than Detroit. Whether it's, is it the Bloomberg, not Bloomberg, there's the Grossfeld mission that they came through, or the synagogue, and all the federation itself, and so all different groups. And I feel that Detroit, that there was a strong connection, that thinking about what Detroit has gone through as a community, in terms, as you talk about a city that, that was much, in the 50s, 60s, much, an order of magnitude larger, probably 3 or 4 times, I think, larger population-wise than it was, the second largest or third largest city, I think, in the United States at a certain point, and has really had to downsize and gone through what it's gone through from the bankruptcy to the sort of rebirth. And I think that there was something that people from Detroit saw in Krakow, because if you think about, what Detroit as an American city has gone through, but wait a minute, look what Krakow as a city has gone through in terms of the Holocaust and then communism. So I felt like there was sort of that connection, which is why it was, so many visits, I think, from the Jewish community of Detroit to our community here in Krakow.
Yeah, I think that the parallels do exist, but I think that the heart that we Detroiters have is so large that, we come to your community and we just want to embrace you, because we do feel a connection.
No, it's really a very, very special community. I think that, in terms of, I think many people around the U.S., or certainly Jews around the U.S. who aren't that necessarily involved philanthropically or as a Jewish professional, or don't really know the lay of the land. You say to somebody, "Oh, Jews, Detroit," and they're like, "Oh, really? There are Jews there?" They don't understand really the strength of the community. They just think everybody left the city, and they don't understand that there's this incredibly not powerful, but incredibly sort of, as you say, tight-knit group community with deep roots that didn't leave, that stay, that is sort of in the suburbs there, and Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield, and all these sort of areas that are a little bit outside the city, that are just are very philanthropically, very, very generous, very philanthropically involved, supporting not only the community and Jewish and non-Jewish things in the community, but also Israel and communities outside. But you're very involved. Did you get that from your parents?
Not really. My mother was building a business, Weight Watchers. And so she was a businesswoman for, most of my growing up years. I did go to the Jewish day school, the Hillel Day School, and I think that planted the seed for the love of Israel. But it really wasn't until, Hanan and I met, we got together, we came back, we started our lives together. We both became active in our Jewish community. He was the president of Yad, which was turned into Next Gen, the next generation, the junior division of Federation. And, he's been the president of various organizations, the JCC and other organizations in our community. And so our involvement in the community just was something that we did together. And then it expanded to our friendships, because most of our friends are also people who are involved in the community. So, we're all in the same circle and heading down the same path.
Very special. It really is a very special community, and I can't wait to. Yeah, I can't wait.
You got to come back and visit. Come back and see Detroit. We'll have Shabbat dinner. Post COVID, we have these sort of legendary Shabbat dinners at our house where we've had 40 people generally come, and because we're so politically active, we're good friends with the senator and our Secretary of States. But during Shabbat dinner, we're all just there to have Shabbat dinner and enjoy each other's company. And we love to have the table filled with different voices and opinions and, devars going around the table, and we toss the challah. That's our tradition. We toss the challah to everybody, and that becomes fun and chaotic, and the kids are running around, and, I miss that terribly, during these COVID eras. We can't do that, but we will return. We will get back there.
We'll be back. I miss it too. JCC Shabbat Dinner is a big part of what we do, really. Maybe in some ways, one of our signature events, along with the Ride for the Living. Our Shabbat dinners are a known thing. And people, very often groups, when they come to Krakow, they'll plan the schedule, or when they come to Poland, they'll plan it to be in Krakow over Shabbat and go to Auschwitz on Friday. And then after Auschwitz, come and spend Shabbat with the community, the sort of reborn community. And I think this juxtaposition of life after death is something. So the Shabbat dinner is, I think, also very central to our Jewish experience. I guess everywhere in the world, but we particularly for us here in Krakow as well, as you're saying. So I will graciously accept your invitation. I can't wait to come. I really can't wait. I know so many people in the,
You do. You have a lot of friends here.
A lot, and I want to go throw Brian. See, I want to go throw the axe. He has the axe, the pub with the axe throwing.
Yeah.
I haven't done it.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
I haven't done it either, so it's okay.
we can throw axes together.
Yeah.
And so you're also, I think, famous for your newsletter, which I am like number one. I'm your number one newsletter groupie. So maybe tell us a little bit, where did the idea start? A little bit about sort of what you're trying to do with that, and then I'm going to ask you about a certain person that you got to say something.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I did it for 10 straight years. Never missed a Friday ever, which was remarkable, but it was something that was important to me. And I get people, especially during the heyday when I was doing it continuously, constantly coming up to me and thanking me for doing it and writing it and being connected, and people who don't live in Michigan or who live all over the world. But it started after our youngest son's bar mitzvah. He's 24 now. So he had a bar mitzvah, and people came in for the bar mitzvah, and I wanted to stay in touch with them. And I remembered that people used to send me end of the year long lists of, just like yearly connections. And they would say, this is what our family did through the year. And we traveled here, we traveled there. And it was always at the end of the year, and it was once a year. And I loved that connection. But then I coupled that with, when you're in Israel, wherever you are on a Friday afternoon, you go shopping at a store, everybody will say to you, Shabbat Shalom. And I just love the message of Shabbat Shalom, and it's Shabbat time. It's such a special time, and enjoy it. So I started the first one with just the out of town friends who came in for Aviv's bar mitzvah. And I just said, thank you for coming in. We had a lovely time. I'm making a commitment to stay connected to all of you once a week, just to wish you Shabbat Shalom. It just might be Shabbat Shalom. Hope you have a great Shabbat and a nice weekend till the next Shabbat, just to stay connected to those people. Because oftentimes a lot of those people I wouldn't see unless it was the next Simcha. And then it just evolved, and I started adding more people, and I had a message and a voice I wanted to share. And I love music, and I wanted to share all of the videos and the music that people like. And I'm very political, and during election season, it got very informative, and I try to be very informative and respectful with my politics. And anything that was going on, there was a whole section during Gilad Shalit when he was captured, and every day, every week, I would say, week number such and such, he's still captured. Let's keep it, let's not forget him. And, and like those issues that were happening throughout the world, I would just kind of spotlight that week. And then I would meet famous people. And I would, the first ones that I did, we were at a concert with James Taylor and Carole King. And we had the VIP tickets where you would come and hear the sound check. And then they would come into the audience and see the 30 or 40 people that got to, come early. And they both came up to me, and I was writing my Shabbat messages at the time. And I said, would you mind if I just recorded you and you said, hi, I'm James Taylor, I'm Carole King, Shabbat Shalom, and they agreed. And I was so excited about it, but I made a mistake because I videotaped it. I had my phone and I recorded it. And after they said it, I was so nervous. I didn't want to miss it. I wanted to get it right. And I ended. And just as I ended it, Carole King said to me, well, one of us knows how to say that more comfortably than the other, meaning she's Jewish and James Taylor wasn't Jewish, and they were saying Shabbat Shalom. And I wish I had captured that moment, because that would have been a great thing to be included, but I missed it. But regardless, but the funny thing is I had met both of them later. James Taylor did a concert. Both of them actually did concerts one did for Obama and one did for Senator Stabenow. And we had it at my mom's home in the basement. So James Taylor came to our house and he did a concert, and we got to meet him, and oh my God, it was like so amazing. Wow. And I asked him if he remembered I said, several years ago, I asked you to record Shabbat Shalom. He didn't remember at all. But James and Carole King, I think I was too nervous to even ask her if she remembered. But
it's amazing. I like both of them, but Carole King is just unbelievable.
So I have a recording of them. I mean, it's still in the YouTube, because you have to make it into a YouTube and then embed it into the thing. So I have I think you want to ask me about one of them. Which one did you want to ask me about?
I was going to ask you about Obama.
Yeah. So I did, you go in those lines and you do the photograph, and they say, don't take your phone and don't do anything, and I took my phone, and I forgot I gotten both Obama and Michelle Obama. I got Barack and Michelle. And I don't recall if it was before or after. I think I got Michelle first. And so when I went to Barack, I said, your wife did it. Would you please do this for me? And he did it. He said, hi, I'm Barack Obama, Shabbat Shalom. And then I embedded that into that week's session. So yeah, that got a lot of excitement.
Very, very cool. Did you, by the way, just about Carole King, did you see Beautiful? Did you see the
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did. It was great. I love Carole. Tapestry was my first album. In 1970, it was my first album, listened to it extensively. Although my very favorite artist has and always has been Cat Stevens.
Cat Stevens.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of his.
And with Cat Stevens, was there ever an issue in terms of the politics as it got there was the whole thing with Salman Rushdie, and a little while Cat Stevens was kind of
he was sort of like off limits a bit, and he was even banned from the United States because they had his name written, it was the wrong person. I mean, I did do investigations because I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt because I loved him so much. And he said it was a mistake. He didn't know, he was learning, he was just trying to embed himself into Islam and wanted to just do the right thing. And I think he said something about being advised by somebody that he shouldn't have listened to. And, from what I gather now, he's a very, very peaceful. He still wants, to be, have peace in the nations, in the world. And I don't think he still has the, I'm still a fan. There's a funny.
He still sounds so good.
He does.
I was listening to what did you did the second one? It was like T for the
T for the Tillerman 2.
The other day I listened to it. Just really, he's amazing.
I have a really funny story about that. We were in Tel Aviv eating at a cafe, and there were some English speakers sitting next to us, and we were really, really close. And we're talking to these people, And Hanan is talking to the gentleman, and I'm talking to the daughter of the gentleman, who's Israeli, and the gentleman is English. And we're just hitting it off, and we're just talking and having this great time. You know how you meet people in a cafe in Israel. And he says, you know, my brother isn't allowed to come to Israel. And we're like, oh, that's weird. Why? And he goes, well, my brother is Cat Stevens. And I'm like, oh my God, I am meeting Cat Stevens' brother. His name is David Gordon, the sweetest guy. He has a wonderful voice. He sang. I took a picture with him, and I put him on my Shabbat message. He gets my Shabbat messages, and occasionally he'll reply. And you know, I've tried to, you know, keep in touch with him, but you know, I walked out of there going, I can't believe I just met Cat Stevens' brother. His first wife was Israeli, so his daughter's Israeli, or one of his wives were Israeli. So his daughter lives in Israel, and
Very
supposedly
cool.
he was the one who gave Cat Stevens his Quran to read, because he was in Israel, and it was a Quran that he got from Jerusalem, and he gave it to his brother. And you know, that's
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a really good story. I was watching, I was just thinking about it, that I saw him recently, something on YouTube. You know, you look at one thing on YouTube, and then just links, you know, used to go on these like 2 hours, I get lost in YouTube, and it was Chris Cornell and Cat Stevens doing, I guess, Wild World.
Or Father and Son or something.
Father and Son or Wild World. Just the voices together were just unbelievable. I'm a big Chris Cornell fan. Just, wow. So what about, so, you know, it's in hiatus now. I don't want to say you've completely finished, because that would be upsetting. So any plans to restart at some point the newsletter?
Yeah. We took a walk, my husband and I took a walk yesterday, and somebody stopped. We were talking to some friends who we crossed paths with, and I don't really know her that well, but she's on the list, and she's like, oh, you have to write after this election. You got to write something for us. We need to hear it. And so I probably should. There's a lot. What I do is if I read something that's interesting to me, I will put it in a section where I can refer back to it. For example, U of M's, there's a story, and this is so unrelated to the election, but I thought it was a great story for part of the messages, because I always have different messages. I have different context. It's not all politics or all music. It's this particular story was a U of M fraternity several years ago had a member in it that transitioned from a man to a woman, and they didn't know what to do. He was a fraternity brother, but now he is a female. So they decided to not kick him out, and they decided to now start allowing women and transgender people and non-binary people into their fraternity. And the national fraternity is now suing them to not do this, which is so discriminatory anyway. And so I just thought this was an interesting story for people to hear, that, first of all, I'm not a big fan of fraternities anyway, but my son was a huge fraternity brother, and he loved it. And there's some connections they make, this brotherhood that is forever. But I just thought this was an interesting story that I might use, and you might see it in my future Shabbat message.
At a preview. It is an interesting, fraternities to me are also interesting. I don't appreciate, I just think they're interesting in the sense that they're sort of unnecessary. And to me, when people say, oh, people don't want to congregate and people don't want to join things, whenever you talk in the Jewish world and the Jewish professional world, there's all this, oh, people don't want to have membership and they don't want to join things. And I say, well, what about fraternities? There's no real reason for them to exist except for people to belong to something together. And then they come up with the charity stuff as sort of a way to justify even their existence. But people join things in the sense that I don't think people don't want to join. And from a sociological point of view, fraternities are one of the things that tell me that people do want to join things, because why would that's the only reason they exist is to be joined.
I think people want to join things. I think people want to belong. They want to feel part of a community that they're connected to. I know that synagogues these days with COVID, they're having problems, with their membership.
Yeah, there's an idea, I think, that when people have institutions that people don't join, and instead of saying, oh, I'm doing something wrong with my institution, people just say, oh, people don't want to join things. Like there's very much a move away from membership, like JCCs and stuff. There's a move, oh, you don't have to be a member. Everything is like a la carte, right? You just pick this program, pick this, as opposed to membership. But I think deep down, we want to belong to things.
I do too.
Well,
we agree.
We agree, and I'm encouraged to hear that the newsletter will be making at least a guest appearance after the after the election.
Well, you know, during this crazy political season, I just didn't. I couldn't focus. I was focused on the politics, and I did in my Facebook. I did a countdown of the election on Facebook. I started with day 8, you know, day 8 and counting, day 7, and I tried to put content in there that would have gone in a Shabbat message. You know, political content about Trump versus Biden's love of Israel, for example, and other kinds of factual content so I was really focusing on getting that message out on Facebook. But I know I don't feel pressured, but
listen, you've given so much. It's just wonderful. It's just done so well, and the way weaving the sort of theme through it, and just you write very well. It's really,
thank you.
You don't read so many things that are such a pleasure to sit down on a Friday with that. It's a nice. You give a lot of pleasure to a lot of people.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the election. First of all, Michigan, was it closer than you thought? Were you surprised? Trump won last time, I guess, by just promising the moon to a state that had so much, that lost a lot of blue collar jobs. It's easy to promise, candy to people in that sense, which was, of course, nonsense, clearly nonsense. But what was the result? Assuming we take it as official these days, which I think pretty much it is, pretty much closed. Was it surprising to you?
You know what? This whole election was really surprising to me. Starting with
the whole world is surprising.
the polls. Last time the polls were wrong. This time the polls were wrong. We can never listen to the polls. They're just, for whatever reason, they're just inaccurate and harmful, I think, to the pre-election season. Not to mention our campaign finance is ridiculous. We spend a ridiculous amount of money that is so wasted on media that could be put to such good use. No other nation, I don't know how Poland does it.
No other nation does it like the US, that it's just open season and the ruling of, what is it, Citizens United?
Yes, that's got to go.
We don't want to violate corporations' free speech since corporations have rights like a person. I mean, just
ridiculous. That Citizens United was one of the worst decisions ever. It just destroyed us. But it's and the media is the only one that's making out, and the media is also culprit for distraction and misinformation and the extremes of that. We are just a fractured, broken system. So to start out, we're a mess. So the polls were bad. The day of the election went quite smoothly. Because of COVID, we had millions, 100 million ballots sent in early. And then we had 155 or nearly 160 million voters. This is the unprecedented, the most amount of voters we have ever had in our nation in 100 years, I think, it's just amazing.
Right.
But it was close. The election was too close for comfort for me. And Trump increased his base by millions of people. Well, never mind. I had an open source here. Anyway, he increased his base, and I had thought his base was shrinking. He only won Michigan by last time in 2016 by about 10,000 votes. That's minuscule. Right. This time he lost by a lot more in Michigan.
I think it's 2.9%. I think the last I saw for Michigan.
Yeah. But the point is, why is his base increasing? Why do they love him so much? Why was this election so close? Why are so many people want to continue the indecency and the corruption? And there are reasons, and they've been studying all these reasons, but it's just so heartbreaking for me to see that the election was so close. But we are victorious. It's going to be fought in courts for months to come, unfortunately.
The most surprising thing that I've seen in my entire life is how people can still support him, and the mental gymnastics needed to do that. And I mean, if people would just say, "Listen, I want to pay less taxes. I don't care about the rest." Fine. I might not think that's nice, but at least I understand that. Or people say, he's going to report people that abortion is the worst thing in the country. X million thousand people are being, babies, fetus,
Right.
whatever you want to say, life is being ended. I want that to change. I'll forgive anything if
Right.
that ends. Then I understand that. Those two things I can understand. I don't understand.
Actually,
I don't understand everybody else.
no, I understand the abortion rights people. Those people truly believe that it's murder. I get. They don't want it to happen anywhere to anybody. Taxes. Right. Come on. I don't give a pass on the ones who want lower taxes.
But at least there's it's not okay. It's not nice, but there's a consistency in saying I care about paying less taxes. Person X will give me less taxes. I support person X, and I'm blind to the rest. Okay, it's at least it's a logically consistent point of view. But anybody else, I'm a coal miner. I mean, who are you? Who's being helped?
No, they're not. They're not. Right, and their taxes aren't going to really be affected.
And anybody who's a woman or born of a woman or has a child, I mean, anybody, I mean, how do you, I just can't, not to just vent and all of this and rant, but how do you vote for a person to be in any position of authority that you wouldn't allow your teenage daughter to be alone in a room with for 5 minutes? So,
You're preaching to the choir. I agree with you.
I'm just waiting for somebody to explain it to me that I'll be like, okay, because it's sort of, I feel like it's one day I wake up and gravity is different. In other words, the things that I thought are normal, I feel it's like the Twilight Zone where they take off the bandages and everybody, it's sort of like the people with deformed faces and that's beautiful. It's like the world is upside down.
We live in an altered universe. It doesn't make sense.
And I know people that on some level are reasonable people that just kind of support them. And I don't understand the mental gymnastics necessary to get to that point.
I agree. I've said there's no trade whatsoever that you can justify for his. What really gets me is his lying. He lies about everything. You lose trust when you lie. So how can you trust somebody that's lying about one thing? How do you know the next thing he says isn't a lie? So how can you trust that?
Right.
To be our president, no less.
Lie. Even if you supported Trump until 2:30 a.m. on election day, somehow you've ignored the rest. He got on TV and said, "We won, it's over, that's it." Nobody else. You didn't even see, even like Mitch McConnell, people weren't supporting that. So how do you not? Doesn't some light bulb go? Wait a minute, he's just lied to me on TV. What about these other thousands of lies that everyone else is saying about?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. The only thing.
And then I was watching Fox, and they're spewing the same lies. So they're getting it, these people are getting it from Trump, but they're also getting it from Fox News, and they believe it. They truly believe the lies. And he believes the lies. It's unfathomable. And I agree, there's a lot of normal people who, our neighbor, like across the street, was like, and I thought he was a normal person, and he is a normal person, but he's a Trump supporter. How can you do that?
I don't get it. And it's not like there's no background. He didn't come out of nowhere. It's like, people in New York, and you're like, oh yes, I did business with him. He stiffed me on a business deal in 1977. Like any developer in New York, I know somebody who hung paintings in his apartment. He didn't get paid for hanging the paintings. I mean, the guy was nothing. He's always been exactly the same.
Exactly. He's got history. Or, his foundation, his charitable foundation spent, how much on that big portrait of himself. And then they had to close the foundation, and who cares?
It just sort of makes the universe that the place that I thought I lived in is a different place than it is. And the rules of nature and laws that we walk around are different because people somehow believe that. I can't get it. It's been the most difficult thing for me to understand in my lifetime has been the support of Donald Trump.
Right. It's not only they believe it, they like it. They like his attitude and stick it to the guy, and we're gonna, it's us against them, and they want that. I don't know why. It's sad. That's what saddens me about the American population, that half of them feel this way.
I mean, I think that we must be in a position, because you look at the world and you say that there are a lot of strange things, Brexit, people doing things against their own best interests, clearly.
Yeah.
far right governments, and you start to think, wait a minute, the idea of conservative versus liberal, leave the politics out of it and just think, what is the word conservative? To conserve. In other words, when are you in a position, whether it's in business or in life or anything else, that you want to conserve is when you're afraid and when things outside are scary to you. So there's maybe, whether it's the situation of whether it's terrorism or it's technology, or it's the idea that women have come very far in terms of, I won't say achieving equality, but we live in a world where is more fair in terms of women than it was 30, 40, 20, it's going in a certain direction generally. Maybe that frightens men to some degree, and that this is something that allows them to act out. But there has to be some sort of larger explanation, because the normal way that we explain things don't explain Donald Trump.
Right. And then I like the word progressive. I call myself a progressive, but that's a dirty word too. But progressive means you move forward, you improve, you get better, you progress. It's I don't know what's on people's minds. It's crazy.
It is crazy. So what were you doing before? Like you being very involved. What was your period before the election? I don't mean just kind of waiting for it, but in terms of your involvement, what were you doing on the ground in Michigan to try to make sure things go in the way that you wanted them to?
So we coalesced phone banking, and we had a large group of Jewish Women for Joe. And, we just every week got on the phone and called Michigan voters. And it was a very eye-opening experience. It was almost a little bit where I was thinking, I'm getting a lot of Trump people, and that's not right. We weren't even supposed to be calling that many Trump people, but it was, I got a nurse one time who said, she's a nurse, I'm voting for Trump because I don't like anything the Democrats are doing. It's like, we can talk about this COVID thing, because they're closing down the schools, and my kids need to be in school to do their sports so they can get merit scholarships to college. So I'm voting all Republican because the Democrats are closing everything down. And she's a nurse. I didn't ask her what kind of nurse she was, but I'm like, and I wish afterwards I had thought I should have said, well, this COVID is happening all over the world. It's not just happening in Michigan or the United States. We're not the only ones who are trying to prevent deaths from happening. But it's crazy. We are living in such an unprecedented time right now with Trump and COVID. And
what about the Jewish community? How is your community in terms of breakdown? I think that the statistics overall in the US were something like 75% of the Jews. I don't know if they'll, we'll get any follow up with that. Those are the numbers people are talking about. How did it look with your community?
Yeah, it probably fit within that level. There were still some in our Jewish community. Many of the Orthodox people were Trump supporters, as you can imagine, just as that is the case in New York and around the world and in Israel. Although Israelis, tended to like Trump. Trump is good for Israel. Well, but so is Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been to Israel numerous times. He started in 1973. He had a friendship with Golda Meir. Trump, on the other hand, has Jewish grandchildren, Jewish children and son-in-law. Did it ever occur to him to maybe take his family to Israel any of those years while they were around? No, he never went to Israel until he became president. He was there for 48 hours and then he left. And, Biden has taken his granddaughter to, I'm not sure which concentration camp, but when he was somewhere, he wanted to give her an education. He has, he's known the importance of the education of the Holocaust for many years, since he was a child.
Yeah, you think maybe with Israelis that it only goes to this idea of I guess the result of having, of all the wars and being surrounded by neighbors and having a bus blow up in Tel Aviv and people saying that it was, there must be some reason for people to do that. And this idea of them kind of seeking sort of validation and with the embassy, which great. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm in favor of the embassy. We all know already that the capital was Jerusalem and the United States can have the embassy there, and good for for that happening and from doing that fine. But this idea of that means I can excuse a laundry list of of other sins because of that. It just kind of shows, maybe from an Israeli point of view, this deep desire to have this kind of validation of something because I think the trauma of Israel's history.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And do you see that this sort of people that supported Trump, was it an issue within the community? I mean, is it something that, I don't know, if somebody, I feel like at this point, and you don't want to say it and you don't want to kind of feel that way, but I don't know, if I have a good friend that's really a super Trump supporter, it's hard for me to imagine moving forward that I could deal with that person and have much respect and stuff. But so I assume that I'm not alone in my intolerance. You're
not alone in your feelings, but
Yeah.
we can't do that. We have to join together. And now that it looks like we'll have a divided Congress, that might not be a bad thing, because it forces us to cooperate and compromise. And, I am no fan of Mitch McConnell, and he has done horrendous things in the Senate by preventing, obviously, starting with the Supreme Court justice, but even prior to that, all the federal judges that he prevented from getting seated. Obama had many federal judges waiting in the docket, and McConnell just prevented them from going forward, as he did Merrick Garland. And then of course pushed them all through when Trump came in. And now we've got this generation of federal judges and Supreme Court justices who are there forever. Now we need some reform on our justice system. We need maybe term limits, maybe age limits, maybe, it's too partisan right now, our Supreme Court. We need some major reforms. And I don't know what Joe Biden's going to do. And by the way, Joe Biden still hasn't been, declared the winner yet. We're still many states haven't been announced. I'm looking at the calendar, the map right now.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is still 264 and Trump is 214. We will get there. And hopefully when Biden is in the White House, we will have some healing. We desperately need it. We can't go on living this polarized and this hated against each other. And it is unprecedented. I mean, families have been broken up. Friendships have been broken up. We can't live like this. It's just unhealthy.
It's hard. I think American democracy, especially the Senate, is based on some sort of, some presupposition of decency and rules that might not be written. And I think they've all sort of been violated. And I don't know how to go back. That you talk about a divided Senate. I'm generally think a divided Senate, however much I want my way to be the right way. I understand that for the country, a divided Senate is normally not a bad thing, except when the Senate sets up, as happened last time, when one part of Congress just sets up and says, we're going to block everything Barack Obama does. And then afterwards say, oh, Barack Obama didn't do anything because he was blocked. So, I mean, it's like, if there is some idea of compromise, which, we've only gotten this far as a country because there is some idea of compromise in these bodies. And if you just shut down the idea of compromise and say, I'm going to wait it out 4 years or 8 years, and then say how bad they are once we're in power, it's a
terrible cycle. It's a terrible, unhealthy cycle.
So in terms of the cycle, really, in a sense, should Biden, I don't know what, my thoughts on it aren't clear yet. I go back and forth. Should he change the structure of the court? What do you think?
I think he should look into it. I really think he should look into it. It's like I said, it's a reform. It's, not packing the courts, although Mitch McConnell packed the court, but it's a reform of the system. We need to, like I said, we need to just determine, do we need more? There's nothing in the Constitution that says we can't have more Supreme Court justices added. So should we do that to just even things out right now? Should we put term limits on? So I think what he said, he's going to have a commission of both Republicans and Democrats and independents and constitutional lawyers and people who can just study this and determine what we think we should do that will bring health to our nation. And by the way, I just want to mention, last night we watched this amazing documentary called The Way I See It. It is, Pete, you got to watch it. It's on, I think Prime. I think Amazon Prime has it. It was on MSNBC. We watched it on this new Peacock network, it's free right now. It is a documentary on Pete Souza, and Pete Souza was the photographer for Obama, and he was also the photographer for Ronald Reagan. when he was really young. He was in his 20s when he was photographing Reagan, and the juxtaposition of the Obama years, and he keeps talking about the Trump era and how this is not how it was and shouldn't be this way. And the reason he became so famous is he was apolitical. He was not going to give his opinions on politics at all, because when you work at the White House, you shouldn't be, you should be apolitical, especially for his job. And he started to see what Trump was doing, and he started to put on Instagram his photos of Obama in contrast.
It's great.
And these little comments. I'm a follower. I was a follower.
He's great.
So it is fantastic. And this documentary just highlights all of that. I mean, it made me go out and buy this book called Shade, which is a compilation of all of his Instagrams and his notations, his funny notations about the comparison. So I highly recommend it. It's really good.
I liked it in the beginning. He was doing things on the day. Trump would do something, meet with some leader, and then do something stupid, and then you showed like Obama, like graciously. You saw the grace that was lost.
Oh, Obama was a true mensch. He really was.
One thing that's hard from a Jewish perspective, that's been tough for me, and I think that you're so involved in the community, and so deep connected to all these people, is that how is it justifiable from a Jewish point of view, even if person A does something that you agree with or something, yet how are we allowed to disregard the character aspect of it? In other words, good for Israel, but yet completely terrible in other ways, and accused 26 or 27 women have accused him of sexual assault. How all of those things we can disregard. Like, how, from a Jewish point of view, how is that? I mean, I guess I'm coming back to what I said before.
I know. I don't know.
I feel like, wait a minute, there's an idea of derech eretz. There are certain things we believe in, whether how observant you are and how religious, maybe it's more Torah, maybe it's more tikkun olam, but wherever you are, that's just not acceptable.
I agree. And it's interesting because the religious elements of the communities are the ones who are supposed to have derech eretz and understand the commandments and follow them so strictly. And how do they compartmentalize in their brain their support of a man who is the ultimate opposite of how we as Jews are supposed to act? It's unfathomable. It doesn't make sense. But they just are able to separate out what their needs are from the means to getting them, which is sad.
And it's a short-term way of looking at things, because if you do that long enough, then you lose what the main thing is really about.
Yeah.
Are you? So I just in finishing, I'm mindful of our time. Are you Team Latka or Team Hamantash?
Team Latka or Team Hamantash?
There's a Latka Hamantash debate that we do every year that started at the University of Chicago, which is the more perfect Jewish food. And people kind of take it very seriously, and they have these like professors and people, sort of doing this big debate about which is the more perfect Jewish food. So there are two questions that I ask all my guests at the end. One is, that's the first one. Are you Latka or Hamantash?
Can I say gefilte fish?
You can.
Latka or Hamantash? It's funny. Latka is from Hanukkah, and that's not such a big holiday. And Hamantash is Purim, which really reflects more of. They both are. They tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat, kind of a thing. I'm sticking with gefilte fish. I don't know. It just seems to represent us.
Duly noted. I think that's the great.
Sorry, I'm not. I apologize. I feel like I should be more of a follower of your interviews to know that.
No, you can say whatever you want, and also, but especially from the good gefilte fish yichus of Detroit with the film,
Marcy Orley and Hermelins, and
it was a phenomenal film.
There was the movie Rush Hour with, I forgot, Shane
and Chris Tucker.
Right at the very end, during the bloopers, there's a whole fantastic scene about gefilte fish, and he just can't say gefilte fish, and it's really hysterical. I'm not even sure why gefilte fish is brought up in the whole scene, but you got to Google that. Just do Jackie Chan, whatever, Rush Hour Gefilte Fish. It's really funny.
Check it out. And you make films, which is a good segue into my final question. What are your 3 favorite movies?
Okay, well, I've got 2 for sure. I don't have 3, I have 2. Okay. One of them is The Big Chill, which it's just, I don't know why I loved it. The music, the people, the connection, the University of Michigan connection. Lawrence Kasdan is a Detroit, went not a Detroiter, but meant, he's got Detroit connections. He's got family here. And then the other is Forrest Gump. I just have such an affinity to Forrest Gump in the way he influences so many people throughout his life and his simplicity and life is a box of chocolates, it's,
there you go.
Those are my 2 favorites. I don't have a third.
And especially knowing your love of music, that those are 2 just absolutely top all-time soundtracks.
Yeah.
Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Jonathan.
For your community and for the Jewish world and with the newsletter and everything else that you're involved in. And say hi to Hanan and your kids.
I will, but I want to say thank you to you for what you're doing in Krakow and in the Jewish community there and all the work you're doing. I saw you went to visit somebody who had a birthday and just the connections that you make there is so special. And so thank you for this and for your efforts. And this was fun. This was really fun. So thank you for inviting me.
You will. See you soon. I hope.
Thank you.
In person. Take care. Stay safe. Shabbat Shalom.